I swear to you, officer, he's got goats, illegal fences, probably weapons. And he threatened me with a rake. Karen's voice screeched from the edge of my property, one foot still buried in the flower bed she'd just trampled through like Godzilla in yoga pants. The two officers glanced at each other. Then, in perfect sync, they turned to me. Straightened up, snapped to attention. "Good morning, Chief." Karen's mouth dropped open like a screen door in a hurricane. I took a slow puff from my cigar, nodded once, and muttered, "Ma'am, that rake's for compost, but you keep pushing. I might start gardening aggressively." And just like that, war broke out in Maple Hollow. I never wanted a fight. After 30 years of dragging people out of fires, pulling my guys off collapsing rooftops, and seeing more chaos than an entire Fast and Furious franchise, I wanted peace. I bought a quiet little ranch on the edge of Maple Hollow, 10 acres of trees, hills, and the occasional deer pretending not to see you. The plan? Fish. Fix fences. Maybe die quietly. Surrounded by bourbon, goats, and my dog Blaze. No HOA nightmares. No rules about mailbox angles. No clipboard queens. Or so I thought. Enter Karen Whitmore. Day 2. She showed up on my porch like a blonde Category 5 hurricane. Tall, platinum hair twisted into a punishing bun. Lululemon leggings like battle armor. And a binder, color-coded, labeled Community Code Compliance. She smiled like someone suing for custody of a shrub, handed me a list of violations, and said sweetly, "Welcome to the neighborhood. This is your courtesy warning." I hadn't even unpacked my wrench. According to Karen, my mailbox was 2 inches too wide. My fence was aesthetically aggressive. My American flag, not HOA-approved fabric blend. And my horses, apparently visually jarring to the suburban ecosystem. I asked if she wanted to meet Blaze, my Australian shepherd. She sniffed and said, "I'm cat-adjacent." Then she muttered something about me smelling like smoke and dirt. Didn't bother explaining that 30 years in public service bakes that into your skin. See, Karen types don't stop with warnings. Warnings are just the prologue. You know the thing about HOA enforcers like Karen. They never just knock once. Warnings turn into notes. Notes turn into photos. Photos turn into neighborhood safety initiatives. Within a week, she was leaving handwritten complaints in my mailbox, which, by the way, is a federal offense. But I guess Karen thought the Constitution stopped at her curb. Then came the binocular era. She'd sit in her Subaru pretending to birdwatch. Binoculars locked directly onto my barn. If she saw a pigeon, I'll eat my hat. And when I hosted a quiet cookout for a few of my firefighter buddies, a bunch of grizzled men with beards and leather jackets, Karen called animal control, said we were running a goat fighting ring. She left me a voicemail. I saved it, for laughs. This is a clear violation of HOA Regulation 7B regarding livestock gatherings. Also, one of your goats was giving me side-eye, and I feel threatened. Lady, the goat's name is Pancake. He's 12. He has arthritis. He threatens no one. Then she complained about the color I painted the barn. Non-compliant red, she said. Apparently there's a shade of regulation beige I should have used. She reported my rooster for excessive enthusiasm. Filed a concern about the aggressive posture I use while chopping wood. I told her, "Karen, I was trying to be neighborly, but if we're ticketing posture now, your yoga pants are committing visual crimes." Things escalated faster than a gas grill left on high. Turns out not showing up to the monthly HOA meetings was a cardinal sin. I thought I was avoiding petty drama. To her, it was rebellion. So one sunny afternoon, Karen showed up on my porch flanked by a second-in-command, a woman named Patty, who had the eyes of a hawk and the warmth of a DMV clerk. They tried to trap me mid-roof repair. I offered them lemonade. They declined. Left a fine instead. HOA taxation without hydration. But here's the twist. Something I never saw coming. The kids loved me. Word spread. Stories grew. You know that guy wrangling goats with one hand while fixing a fence with the other? The guy who chopped wood shirtless in February? He once fought off a raccoon with just a shovel and pure dad energy. One teenager, bless him, filmed me sprinting across the pasture after a runaway goat while yelling, "Not today, Carl!" Posted it with the caption, "Calm Gandalf versus HOA Karen." It went mildly viral. My nephew sent it to me with 7 laughing emojis and a crying face. I laughed too, until I saw the Karen summoning ritual in full swing. Next thing I know, 2 squad cars pull into the gravel drive. Karen had seen me hauling hay shirtless, filed it under public disturbance. Also, my biker friends were visiting again. From the porch, I watched her in full performance mode, hands waving, ponytail bouncing like a metronome set to outrage, pointing toward my ranch like she'd found buried treasure. The officers took their time, walked up slow. Then, they looked at me, straightened up, and snapped into a salute. "Good morning, Chief." Turns out the younger one, I'd pulled his dad from a propane fire back in '02. Karen? She just stood there, blinking, mouth open like dial-up internet trying to connect. It was the first time I ever saw her speechless. It was also the last. Because what came next? Oh, she didn't retreat. People like Karen don't retreat. They reload. But something had changed. From that day on, the neighborhood stopped looking at me like the outlaw she painted, and started seeing me for what I really was, a man just trying to grow tomatoes in peace, talk to his horses, and maybe not get arrested for goat possession. I figured that salute incident would die down quietly. Maple Hollow gossip spreads fast, but it burns out just as quick. I was wrong. 4 days later, I was brushing down one of the horses when my neighbor Trent, full jog, sweat pouring like he ran from a tax audit, sprinted up my dirt road waving his phone like it was on fire. "Marcus, you're going viral again." He said it like I had caught an illness. I squinted at the screen. There it was. The video. Zoomed in, grainy with dramatic music and a freeze frame of Karen's horrified face as the cops saluted me. Over 200,000 views. Caption: "When HOA Karen meets the retired fire chief." I sighed, then I laughed. This wasn't going away. By noon, the HOA had called an emergency meeting. Naturally, I wasn't invited, but thanks to Trent, who has zero shame and a love for eavesdropping, I got the play-by-play. Karen had prepared a PowerPoint presentation. Title slide? Preserving Maple Hollow, Combating Rural Lawlessness. She used words like community destabilization, non-compliant livestock presence, and, my personal favorite, threatening patriotism via unregulated flag display. Some folks were buying it, until she brought up something questionable. She claimed to have surveillance footage of my ranch with audio. Now look, I've got trail cams for wildlife, but they don't record audio, so either she was guessing or she was spying. Margie, the HOA treasurer, and Karen's own cousin, raised an eyebrow so high it nearly entered another tax bracket. "Where'd you get that footage?" she asked. Karen turned red, muttered something about anonymous submissions. Nobody bought it. The room got quiet. People didn't like HOA rules before, but now they were starting to ask a different question. Who's watching us? That night, around midnight, I caught movement near my back gate. Blaze growled. I grabbed a flashlight. It was Karen, wearing all black, tactical fanny pack, squatting near my compost like she was defusing a bomb made of rotten tomatoes. I didn't say a word. I just let Blaze do what he does best. Politely heard. He didn't touch her. Just circled. Slowly. By the time I walked up, she was wedged between a fence post and a hay pile, whispering, "I'm collecting HOA evidence." I clicked on my flashlight. "Karen," I said, "unless this hay violated a zoning law, I don't think you're going to find much." She stormed off, covered in straw, muttering legal jargon like a possessed court stenographer, and just when I thought it couldn't get weirder. A video leaked. Someone, probably Trent again, had trail cam footage of Karen tripping into my drainage ditch. She popped up like a muddy prairie dog, cussing like a pirate, mascara halfway down her face. The meme page that first posted the police salute clip, they called this one, Karen versus the Compost Zone. 500,000 views by the next morning. One guy even edited it into a fake movie trailer. Title, Ditch Witch, The Maple Hollow Menace. The comment section was savage. Even my goats were trending. Meanwhile, Karen was busy writing new HOA rules, clearly designed to target me. She proposed banning livestock, wood-burning stoves, and non-regulation American flags. The board just stared. Even Margie laughed. Finally, someone asked, "Are we running a neighborhood or a dictatorship with hay allergies?" Suddenly, the room wasn't hers anymore. And me? I didn't do a thing. I just sat on my porch with a glass of sweet tea, blaze at my feet, and watched as the legend grew. Not because I wanted to be famous, but because one woman's power trip had accidentally awakened a whole community, and I was just getting started. I thought the viral Compost Karen clip might finally slow her down, but no. Karen doesn't do retreat. She just changes tactics. First came the cease and desist letter, hand-delivered, typed in Comic Sans. It accused me of slander, defamation, harassment, and something she called community intimidation via livestock. I laughed so hard Blaze started barking because he thought I was choking. I considered framing that letter next to my fire department retirement plaque. I forwarded it to my lawyer, Barb. Yes, that Barb, 5'2", full of rage and sarcasm and allergic to nonsense. She read it once and said, "Tell Karen to grow up, or lawyer up." But Karen wasn't done. Her next move? She showed up with a clipboard, 2 confused volunteers, and what looked like a child's megaphone. "This is an official sanitation audit," she announced at my gate. "Your compost is breeding aggressive rural bacteria." Ma'am, it's compost, not Chernobyl. Luckily, Barb had predicted this. I handed Karen a sealed letter, my own cease and desist, legally binding, formally stating that any further trespassing would count as harassment, or worse, depending on the judge's mood. She turned bright red, stormed off so fast her clipboard flapped behind her like a defeated kite. But Maple Hollow wasn't done with Karen, not by a long shot. By a long. Remember Margie, the treasurer? She had started sniffing around the HOA finances, partly out of boredom, partly because Karen had been spending money like we had a neighborhood NASA program. Turns out, Karen had been embezzling. Yep, spa visits, filed under community wellness workshops. Aromatherapy retreat in Asheville. Emergency HOA leadership development. Even had charges labeled as neighborhood tactical response kit, which we're pretty sure was her buying a $400 flashlight. Margie was furious and thorough. She compiled every receipt, every odd transaction, every sketchy Venmo trail, but she didn't leak it. Yet. "Oh no," she whispered. She made sure just enough people heard the right rumors. And that's all it took. HOA board members started skipping meetings. The ones who showed up started asking real questions, the kind Karen wasn't used to answering. Her HOA throne wasn't just cracking, it was splintering. But Karen? Oh, she doubled down like crazy was on clearance. She started drafting a proposal to ban goats, wood stoves, homemade wreaths, and non-neutral fence colors. At the next meeting, someone stood up and asked, "Are we running an HOA or a hobby dictatorship?" Karen fumbled. Her pearls rattled. Margie smirked. Meanwhile, I was becoming unintentionally popular. Neighbors would stop by just to chat, bring pie, ask if they could borrow tools. One guy came over just to say thank you, said his anxiety dropped 30% since Karen lost her grip on the HOA. Then the high schoolers came back. Remember the kids who filmed Compost Karen? They asked if they could shoot a short film for class on my ranch. I said yes. They cast me as old man with axe. I didn't have to act. And then came the moment Karen cracked. Margie, holding a manila folder like it was evidence in a courtroom, showed up on my porch. "Marcus," she said, "you need to see this." Receipts, bank statements, spa bills. She'd cross-checked everything. It was airtight. Karen had officially crossed the line. I could have danced a jig on the porch, but I didn't. I just poured myself a bourbon, patted Blaze, and said quietly, "The haystack's about to hit the fan." Gee. Because this wasn't just about her hating my fence, or my goats, or my non-neutral barn. It was about control. And she was losing it, one spreadsheet at a time. With Margie holding the receipts like the neighborhood's very own Sherlock Holmes, I knew the clock was ticking. But instead of confrontation, I chose celebration. So I threw a party. Not just any party. The ranch revival. Part community BBQ, part strategic power move, part, hey, let's remind people what kindness tastes like. Veterans, firefighters, old paramedic buddies, even a couple off-duty cops. They all showed up. Food trucks lined the gravel drive. Kids got fire safety demos. Someone set up a hay bale seating area. Someone else brought moonshine for emergencies. I gave a short speech about emergency preparedness. People clapped. Some even cheered. And then, like clockwork, Karen arrived. Late. Dressed in all black. Oversized sunglasses. Like she was attending a funeral for her ego. She stomped past the pulled pork table, muttering about permits and safety violations. Then, it happened. Someone had spilled a stray squirt of BBQ sauce. Karen stepped in it, slipped. And in slow-motion cinematic glory, she fell backward, arms flailing, straight into a folding chair and a bowl of coleslaw. Schlup. 30 people saw it live. One teenager filmed it with TikTok reflexes. By sundown, it was trending under. Hashtag Karen gets served. Hashtag coleslaw. Showdown. Fall of the HOA empire. The video sealed it. She became a meme. Not the boss of the neighborhood. Just the punchline at every cookout. But the final blow didn't come from me. It came from within. At the next HOA meeting, standing room only, Margie walked to the front like a prosecutor in pearls. She opened her folder, cleared her throat, and read out every shady transaction. Spa days, scent therapy, leadership retreats at wine country. Karen sat there, blinking, didn't scream, didn't deny, just sat, as if the weight of it finally hit. And then, fate struck again. That same evening, I heard the call over the emergency scanner. Karen's house was on fire, small blaze, likely an overloaded power strip. Still serious, still scary, old habits don't die. I jumped in the truck, grabbed my gear, and drove. By the time I got there, the boys had it mostly under control. Karen stood on her perfect lawn, wrapped in a fire blanket, eyes full of ash and shock. Her dog was safe, but she looked like someone who'd just watched everything she controlled turn to smoke. I handed her the dog. She stared, then whispered, "You came?" "I don't leave people behind," I said. "Even the ones who leave notes in my mailbox." She didn't apologize, didn't thank me, but she nodded. And that was enough. A week later, a letter appeared in everyone's mailbox. Karen's resignation. It was dramatic, of course. She mentioned emotional burnout and toxic compost culture. But at the bottom, she nominated me as the next HOA president. Me. The man she once accused of intimidating the community with barn animals. I stared at the letter, taped it to my fridge, and laughed for 3 days straight. I didn't want the job. I'd come here to vanish, not chair meetings about seasonal wreath compliance. But then I thought about the kids who learned to use fire extinguishers at my barbecue, the veterans who shook my hand, the single mom who said, "It's the first time I've felt safe here in years." So I said yes. On one condition. We rewrite the HOA charter. No more fines about fences. No more weaponized clipboards. We'd focus on community gardens, CPR workshops, emergency planning, helping the elderly fix leaky roofs. To my surprise, they agreed. Turns out, people weren't lazy. They were just tired of being policed instead of supported. The next meeting, I showed up in my old fire chief dress uniform. Not to brag, just to remind them who I was and why I cared. "I won't knock on your door about lawn height," I said, "but if your house floods at midnight, I'll be the first one there." That earned a few claps and a quiet respect that didn't need words. In the following weeks, things changed fast. The HOA website added a help request portal. We built a community tool shed. High schoolers volunteered for yard work. Even the mayor dropped by, left with brownies and a smile. Then one Saturday, I saw her. Karen. No pearls, no sunglasses. Just jeans, a flannel, and a tray of muffins. She walked up to the brunch table, didn't make eye contact, and said, "I figured blueberry was a safe bet." "No one's allergic to blueberries, right?" "Not the humans," I said, "but the goats might riot." She gave a tight little smile. Not much, but enough. She stayed the whole brunch, talked to Margie, even petted Blaze when he walked by. No one mocked her. No one brought up the ditch. Maybe we were all just ready to move on. A few months later, I got a letter from the state, an award for lifetime service. At the ceremony, as I stood on stage in front of officials, press, and more cameras than I liked, I spotted her. Karen, back row, clapping. Didn't have to come, but she did. I came home that evening, Blaze at my feet, the sun dipping behind the hills, grabbed a carrot, fed one of the horses, saddled up. And as I rode through Maple Hollow, kids waved, neighbors smiled, an old couple clapped from their porch. And Karen? She stepped out holding a pie, raised a hand, gave a small wave. I tipped my hat. I didn't come here to lead. I came here to rest. But sometimes, the best kind of peace is the kind you fight for.